Hola clase, I'm here to continue our conversation about the irregular preterite. As I mentioned in the previous videos where we talked about the loafer gang and the con gang, I classify irregular preterite verbs into groups that I call gangs, and it's kind of a silly analogy, but essentially these are verbs that don't follow the rules, and they kind of, act in groups. They hang out in groups of people that are a lot like them, and they break rules, and so we call them gangs. It's kind of a silly thing, but we've talked about the loafers, which have the stem change in the third person only. We've talked about the cons, which have consonant changes. And here we're going to talk about what I call the nicks. The technical term, most grammatical teachers would call it a radical stem change. I call it a nick, or in other words, a nickname. Now, there are a lot of these, and they're actually, it's a fair amount of work to memorize them, so you need to spend time memorizing what, tener becomes tuve, and a star becomes a stuve, and that kind of thing. And that is, of course, in your book and uncovered in your homework. But I want to point out that we learn them as a group because they have common characteristics. I can give you a list of verbs and say memorize these, but the best thing I can do for you is help you to classify them and say, hey, all of these verbs behave the same way, okay? So this group does have common characteristics, not so much in their infinitive. It's not like the loafers where they're all IR verbs, or the cons where it's all car-gars are verbs. You're gonna see everything from estar to venir to decir to traer. So you have ER and IR verbs. You have some AR verbs, primarily ER, IR verbs, but you have a star, for example. But the common characteristic mainly is how they behave when they're conjugated in the preterite. So this radical stem change, if you think about what happened to, for example, preferir in the preterite, you had an E to I stem change. That's a very normal, typical stem change, okay? A vowel becomes another vowel, or a vowel, E to IE, for example. But radical stem changes are like this. Tener becomes tuv, estar becomes a stuv, poder becomes pud, querer quis, hacer is. That's pretty dramatic, okay? Really, other than the first letter or two, it doesn't resemble the verb that much once it undergoes a radical stem change. So I think of these as nicknames, okay? For example, we call venir Uncle Vinny, okay? Because venir goes to, let's see if I have room for this one. Venir goes to vin. So he's Uncle Vinny. Not all of them have cute nicknames, but that's just how I remember some of these, okay? So anyway, the common characteristic is primarily in the fact that they have a radical stem change, which again, you need to memorize these. They're not going to make sense until you memorize what happens to each of these verbs. But the biggest deal is that they share a set of endings. And you would not expect verbs as diverse as estar and querer and hacer and venir to share a set of endings, but they do. And that's why I have you memorize them together. Now, the story behind this group of verbs is that they were all out in a field together having a party that was not sanctioned by their parents or the police, okay? And the cops showed up and they ran away, and all of the endings fell off and got jumbled up, and the accent marks were lost in the field. Okay, so that's goofy, but you can remember, okay, this is a combination of AR endings and ER-IR endings, except no accent marks, okay? So all of this here, this is all ER-IR endings in the preterite, but then these two are AR endings, okay? But again, no accent marks, that's unique. So this iste, o, imos, istes, hieron, those are your endings. So what you do is you learn the nicknames, you learn the endings, and you just plug them together. So if I say yo, a star form yo, I take a star, which becomes a stuve, and I tack on a. And so yo estuve, okay? Querer, maybe he wanted. Querer becomes quis, and he is the he, she, you said form here, and so it's quiso. Do you understand what we're doing? Okay, so again, there are no accent marks. And the mixed up endings, what I mean is it's part ER, IR, and part AR, okay? I want to highlight a few of these, but what I'm going to do is, let's see here. I don't really want to erase. I'm going to work over here a little bit, and we're going to look at a couple that have some odd behavior beyond that. Now, I want to tell you this is not the complete list. There's a few more. We have poner, saber, decir, traer. I'm going to look at a few that have other irregularities real quick. Hacer is actually the first one. Hacer has a consonant change, so it looks like this. You say hacer, which the nick or the radical stem change is is. Okay, so you have ise, hiciste. And then here you would put H-I-C-O or H-I-C-O, but we have a problem with the C. Remember that C is one of those two-faced consonants, and so we actually are going to change that to a Z, zeta. So it's iso, which sounds more like hacer, ise, hiciste, iso. If you had a C there, it would be ico. We don't want ico, okay? And then we have the rest as normal. Hicimos, hicistes, hicieron. Okay, so again, this is an irregular verb to start with, has a radical stem change, hacer to is. These endings, okay? But in addition, we have a consonant change that has to happen because of the way the C behaves differently among, next to different vowels. And that's something we covered in the congang video. So if that does not ring a bell, please go back and watch the congang video, because understanding how consonants change next to vowels, if you don't have that, you will not spell things correctly, and that would be bad, okay? So that's hacer, okay? I'm going to show you a couple more here. Let me get rid of this real quick. The next two I'm going to show you are going to follow all the rules, except that we end up with an extra vowel that we drop, okay? And that's traer and decir. Now, you'll notice that your book has these done correctly, but the book doesn't highlight that it happens, so you could very easily miss it, and that kind of stresses me out on your behalf. I don't want you to have spelling problems because the book didn't really talk about it. So, decir, the nick of decir is di, okay, with j on the end. So you have dije, dijiste, whoops, I got ahead of myself there, dijo. Please don't say DJ and that's a J sound, okay? Dije, dijiste, dijo, dijimos, dijisteis. And this is the trick, okay? You would want to put ieron there, but you don't say dijeron, you just say dijeron. So the I gets dropped, okay? Decir does that, and also traer does that. So traer, we end up with, let me just write it for you real quick. Traer, okay, which is trach. You have yo, traje, tu, trajiste. Again, this is following that rule of you get the nick stem, and then you add this set of endings. No accent marks, okay? Trajo, trajimos, trajistes. And then here, instead of trajeron, we say just trajeron. The I that would be there is next, okay? So trajeron. So again, you have a list: poder, poner, saber, venir, hacer, querer, decir, traer, okay? All of them take their radical stem change, their new stem, add it onto this set of endings, okay? 3 things to watch out for. Hacer has that irregularity in the third person singular, which is a consonant change, this C to Z. So you say iso. And then traer and decir have the I that's dropped in the third person plural. And that's the nick gang, okay? You'll notice that your book covers part of, it's all in chapter 7. Part of it's in primera parte, where it lists ser, ir, dar, ver, estar, and tener. I personally think that estar and tener belong with poder, poner, saber, venir, all those, because they behave the same way. It's the nick gang. Okay, I'm going to teach you in the next video, I'm going to teach you about another gang that is just simply ser, ir, dar, and ver. So that's it. Thanks for listening.